Hello, my name is Jerry Buckley. I'm the Director of School Counseling here at Bishop Kenny. I'd like to welcome the class of 2023 and their families to our high school to college program for our sophomore class. Last year's success seminar, when you were in ninth grade, was in the beginning of the year. And as we've mentioned before, we have 5 evening programs throughout the school year for students in each grade level, plus a financial aid program for juniors and seniors every year. So this is our program for sophomores. We're glad that you are watching today. We have provided you with a packet of handouts that we'll be referring to today as we go through the program. So we encourage you to take a look at those as we go through. And then obviously you can watch this as many times as needed as far as reviewing the information we are providing. We are getting ready to begin our 10th grade college readiness appointments with our students. And as you can see on there's a number of different things we do in those meetings. We take a look at their current grades and progress reports for the third quarter. We take a look at their PSAT results from October that we'll talk about later on today. We also update their 4-year plan, their activity sheet, to see what they're planning on as far as their classes currently and also for the next 2 years. We discuss the SAT and ACT and their plans to do those over their junior and senior year. We take a look at college and career resource information. We encourage summer visits for college, knowing that the summer between junior and senior year is a great time to get that going. And we also take a look at their core and cumulative GPA. So there's a lot of different things we discuss and give them a good foundation during their sophomore year. It's important, we always review at the beginning of the program, that there are a number of different things to take a look at as far as what colleges are looking for. Number one is always going to be their grades, especially in those core classes that we'll talk about in a moment. So certainly the grades are a most important factor in determining college admission, followed by their test scores, which are the SAT and ACT that we'll talk about as well, and then following their strength of schedule. So when the student talks with their school counselor, it's important to make sure they are reviewing their information and also getting a good idea what classes they are qualified for and appropriately challenging themselves as much as possible. When we talk about grades, there's a number of different things. First of all, the basics. A student has to have a 2.0 cumulative GPA for graduation, and we'll talk about the cum GPA in a moment here. All students should really set a minimum of 80 average in their classes for each course. And really, if they have an 80 average in each class, that's guaranteeing at least a 3.0 GPA, obviously way higher than the minimum 2.0. So we want all of our students to set that as a minimum goal, and that puts them in great shape as far as graduation and so forth. And also the thing to always look back on it, A's and B's in high school will provide the best options when looking at colleges. So really, again, shooting for that minimum 80, obviously for an A or high, or, a high A is certainly the goal for all students to make sure they're setting those goals high and getting off to a great start with their grade point average. If you take a look at handout number 1, this is a review from last year when we talked about it with the freshmen and their families. The cumulative GPA is something to always be aware of. A student's cumulative GPA includes all their classes they've taken throughout high school. So if you take a look at the scale there, it's pretty straightforward. 90 to above is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, and so forth. You can see the standard grade point average, 4.0 for an A, 3.0 for a B, 2 points for a C, 1 point for a D, and 0 points for an F. If a student takes an honors course, they get an additional half weighted point. So you can see an A in an honors course is a 4.5, a B in an honors course is 3.5, and so forth. And then finally, for students in an advanced placement course, an AP course, they get an additional full point. So an A in an AP class would be a 5.0. So again, that's a great motivation to take challenging classes and do well in them throughout your high school career. In order to get the cumulative GPA, you tally up all the grade points and get a cumulative total, and then divide that by the number of courses. So if you see, for example, we have an example for a student after their freshman year. That student has an A in her Religion 1 class, so that's a 4.0. In her English 1 honors class, she had an 89, so that comes out to a 3.5 GPA. Algebra 1 was a 3.0, and you can see course by course we go through there. Finally, with the theater course, she has an A, which is 4.0. You total all those points up, That's 25.5 grade points, and divide that by 7, which is the total number of courses a student takes in a freshman year, and that comes out to a 3.643 cumulative GPA. And again, the cumulative GPA is the one that is shown on the report card, and it's also the one that is used to decide graduating with honors at the end of your 4 years at Bishop Kenny. So again, that's the cumulative GPA, including all courses a student has taken in high school. The next one to discuss is the core GPA. So I'll ask you to take a look at the next handout, which is entitled Core GPA Calculation on the top. Now, what you'll notice is it's the same formula. So basically, again, all the same grades, same points for honors and AP courses, but now, as you can see on the slide, they are just using the 5 major core classes. So English, math, science, social studies, and world language. Those are the 5 areas. So does not include PE classes, other electives, and so forth. In order to get the grade point average, we'll take a look at a sample for the same student. So basically using the same grades a student has on handout number 1, but now we're only pulling out the 4 core classes that a student takes as a freshman. Most students don't take social studies freshman year. You may have taken world geography, and that will factor in, but most freshmen, like I said, took 4 core classes last year as a freshman, and they are currently taking 5, which includes social studies, and that's world history for our sophomore students. So if you'll notice, we include the 3.5 points for the honors English 1 class, 3 points in algebra 1, 4 points for biology, 3 points for the Latin class. You total that out to 13.5 points. Divide that by the total number of core classes, which was 4 in this case, like I said, for a typical freshman from last year. 13.5 divided by 4, and that comes out to a 3.375 core GPA. So again, that's the same student that we're looking at. Her cumulative GPA was a 3.643, and her core GPA was a 3.375. So that's very important to notice that there's a difference there. And typically, most students' core GPA are 2 to 3 points lower, 2 to 3 tenths of a point lower than their regular cumulative GPA. Again, we will go through each year with the students so they know exactly where their cum and their core GPA lie. It's also important to know that the core GPA is used by the state university system in Florida, so that's schools like University of Florida, UNF, and so forth. The Bright Future Scholarship, which is obviously key, and we'll talk about that later on as well. The NCAA for playing sports in colleges, and also many other competitive colleges as well. So that's important to know when you're taking a look at that. If you look at handout number 3, you'll see that we talk about the 3, as we just talked about, the 3 major organizations that will be looking specifically at the core GPA. And again, that's the state university system, as we show up there. Also the Bright Future Scholarship Program, which I'll talk about in greater detail later on. And then finally, like I mentioned, the NCAA as far as playing sports in college. So it's important that students and families really understand there's the cum GPA and there's the core GPA, and there would typically be a difference between the two based on honors, AP classes, and also what core classes they exactly take. The next handout is actually a sample of an official transcript from Bishop Kenny. And again, we emphasize that when a student applies to college, they will send, we will send them, if we do send a transcript, an entire transcript which has every course that they've taken in high school. Then it's up to the college to interpret how they want, whether they want to just pull core classes. If they're at a Catholic college, they may include religion courses in there and so forth. So this is a sample transcript. You can see it's laid out by school year, the courses they took, the credits they earned. It shows the grading scale, the cumulative GPA, the rank, the community service, and then potentially the graduation date eventually when they graduate. So that's important to know as far as each college, no matter where they apply, is going to get the same type of transcript, and then it's up to the college or scholarship organization to interpret whatever they want to from there. Now we'll talk about college entrance exams. As you know, the SAT, the ACT are major college entrance exams at this point. The SAT has actually just announced they are doing away with subject tests, so that will no longer be a factor for our students, certainly in the class of 2023. And then there's also the PSAT, which our sophomore students took last year in the 9th grade, this year in the 10th, and they will take next year. Technically, it will be called the PSAT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, and that in the junior year, they can become eligible for the National Merit Program. And again, like I said, I'll talk about that in a moment. As I mentioned, they took the PSAT in October of 2020. There were 2 different sections on that, the evidence-based reading and writing section, as well as the math. There was no essay on the PSAT. Each section is scored out of 760 points. On the SAT, each section is 800 points, so it's a little bit different there. So a perfect score on an SAT is a 1600. A perfect score on a PSAT is a 1520. So it's a little bit different there, but again, you can get an impression as far as your scores. Students and parents should be aware of their scores at this point. We went through them in the classroom, as well as they have access to those scores online, and they can really break it down by their national percentiles and so forth. Also, it's very important to note that they can link to the Khan Academy, which can help them prep for the actual SAT, which is obviously the most important thing as we go through the process. Next year, as juniors, our students will take the PSAT on Wednesday, October 13th. Again, it'll be the same information, no essay on that, 760 points per section. Again, this is the one day they can qualify for the National Merit Program. So as a strong student, you really want to do great on the test that day, and that's a major factor as far as advancing the program. And what they say is typically the top half of 1% of the nation advances in that program. So we certainly hope we have a number of Bishop Kenny students advancing with that next year based on their preparation from the last few years of school. And again, as I mentioned, again, just like the regular PSAT, they can link to Khan Academy and help themselves prepare for the actual SAT. The SAT, again, is very similar to the PSAT. You've got your evidence-based reading and writing section, and then the math. The essay will be going away as of this June. So basically for the class of 2023, that's not going to be an issue. That will no longer be available when you are a junior next year. So that will be a non-issue, like I said. Each section is out of 800 points. So 800 points for reading and writing, and then 800 points for math. The essay, which will be going away, has been optional, and that will no longer be a factor for our students. And also know that for the SAT and the ACT, as I'm going to mention, there's no penalty for incorrect answers. So it's important to make sure you're answering every question as best you can, even if you have to make an educated guess. We strongly encourage you to get an answer down for every section as you're going through the process. SAT subject tests, as I mentioned, are going to be going away this year. Really a non-issue for our class of 2023, but they have been available in the past in specific subject areas. So the good news is our class of 2023 will not have to worry about that. So again, if a student had a specific question about that this year, they can talk to their counselor. But like I said, we'll really be going away very shortly. As far as the ACT, as you can see, there are English, math, reading, and science sections. The ACT is out of 36 points per section. We encourage students to take that typically during the second semester of their junior year. There is an optional writing component on that. My guess is that'll be going away just like the SATs is as well. And again, on the ACT, there's no penalty for incorrect answer, just like the PSAT as well as, the actual SAT. Students are encouraged to take 2 SATs and 2 ACTs by the completion of their junior year. Most colleges and scholarships will take the highest combined scores from either test. So that's important to be aware of. That's what they call super scoring. So it's important, again, by the end of your junior year that students have planned to do that. If you look at our next handout, we have a list of all the national test dates here at Bishop Kenny as well as around the area for this year. Again, as a sophomore student, you don't necessarily need to take one this year, but it's important to know pretty much the same weekends line up from year to year. You can take a look at the SAT and ACT website as soon as they print next year's dates for 21, 22 and kind of make some plans. So it's important to know, hey, I'm looking forward to taking the ACT in February at Bishop Kenny when I'm a junior, the SAT I'll take in June when I'm a junior, and so forth. Because like I said, the goal is hopefully to take 2 of each. The reason we say 2 of each is that usually the more times the student takes it, the more familiar they are with it and the better they can do. And as always, some students are better on the SAT and some students are better on the ACT. So it's important to take both and see which one works better for you. And then maybe by the time you're a senior in the first semester, you take one more test in your area of strength and see if you can maximize your score. As far as preparing for the SAT and ACT, you can see we have a free booklet that's available in our office. So students are always encouraged to come by and pick one up. They've got their PSAT booklets that they actually used this year, as well as the results, and all the answers are available online, so they can go through and see their correct and incorrect answers and where their areas of strengths and weaknesses are. There are online programs available. There are also test prep guides that are available, and also test preparation courses. So for the test preparation courses, we always encourage that usually 9 to 12 hours. We ask you to stay away from ones that guarantee unrealistic expectations as far as a 200-point increase or whatever the case is. But we certainly know if students are diligent in preparing for those courses, they can do well if they prepare, like I said, up front. As far as scheduling for the 2021 school year, you can see the information there. That'll begin March 10th and end March 29th. So teachers will make recommendations for the students' courses for next year based on their work through the end of the third quarter. So that's important to know. Again, you want to make the best impression on your teacher as possible if you're looking to get recommended for an honors or an AP class as you go through. If you take a look at the next handout, that's our Bishop Kenny 4-year plan. And you can see on the screen here, this is something that you go through with your counselor each year to get an idea as far as what your plans are currently, as well as the future for junior, senior year. Talk about college, careers, majors, and that type of thing. So you can see how things are laid out, and it's important that you kind of have an idea, okay, next year what science I'm going to take, if I'm going to move forward with my world language onto the 3rd and 4th level, or maybe I'll take something else in that area. We always encourage that our students in the junior and senior year, as best as possible, if they are looking to go to a 4-year college upon graduation, would be to take 5 core classes. So if you can see on the screen there, you've got English, math, social studies in the junior year. Science is there as well. So that's 4 cores. And then we would ask you to make sure you plug in 2 more. So whether that be a world language class, which gives you the 5th in the junior year, and also in the senior year, again, going on in science. They're only required to take 3 years of science, but they can certainly take a 4th, and we would encourage them to do that, knowing that colleges want to see that. If science is not your area of strength, we would ask you to replace it with another core class from a different area, whether that's doubling up in a math course, taking another social studies like psychology, taking our creative writing course in English, or whatever the case is. But it's important to make sure that students are taking, for the most part, 5 core classes, both their junior and senior year as they go through. Things to consider when you're requesting your courses. Number 1 would be the graduation requirements for Bishop Kenny, making sure you're meeting that and talking with your counselor about that. College admissions requirements. There are some schools that actually require 3 or possibly even 4 years of foreign language. So it's important, if you know there are schools you're looking at outside the state that do require that you're aware of that and meeting those guidelines. We want classes to be appropriately challenging, meaning that a student shouldn't be over their head, but they also should be taking classes that challenge them, that they have to work hard to achieve high grades. That's an important thing to consider as well. Making sure you've met the prerequisites. All of our prerequisites are available in our course catalog. So it's important, if you have a goal for a class that you're going to take as a senior year, to make sure that you achieve that prereq as a junior. So making sure you set yourself up for success over your 4 years of high school. Strength of schedule goes along with appropriately challenging, making sure you're taking a strong schedule. Like I said earlier, the college college admissions officers will definitely be looking at that. So it's important to have a strong strength of schedule. And then also obviously factoring in major and career goals. If you think you're going to major in science, and certainly you want to make sure you're taking at least one, if not two science courses as a senior. So all those things are important to factor in as you go through your course request process. As far as career exploration tools, we have a number of different things available. Number one is our interest inventory that's available on our Navient student program. So all of our students have a Navient account that they can access online. They were set up in the 9th grade, and that will help them for, as it says, career and college exploration tools, as well as eventually when they're applying to college, they will use that to request their transcript be sent to different schools. Making sure you're doing reading about different careers, talking to professionals, whether that be your parents or friends of your parents, and finding out what different things they do. Job shadowing, which is available through Bishop Kenny. You can actually take a day from school and go on a shadowing or career visit, and again, follow someone who's doing the career you're interested in and find out what their typical day is like. And then certainly volunteer or paid experiences, whether that be in a hospital, a school setting, whatever the case is. We always encourage students to get as much volunteer or paid experience that they can to make sure, again, they have a good background as far as what they're looking for as far as their career. Next handout I was asked you to take out would be, well, first of all, I would encourage you to take a look at the favorite college-related website handout, which was the next one. You can take a look at that, and we have a bunch of different information for test prep. There's also information for career and college planning, and then all the different websites we have as far as, like I said, the different colleges that are throughout Florida. That's a good thing to look at as well. Our junior timeline is in the packet. Obviously, our students are sophomores right now that we are addressing, but it's important to know what's out there in the junior year, so you can take a look at that, and it's typically pretty similar from year to year what the different goals and expectations are for our 11th grade students. We encourage you, number one, to make sure you're making plans for standardized testing. Everyone has different things that go on in their lives, whether it be family events, sports, whatever the case is, to making sure that you've got some specific Saturdays you can sit down and take the SAT and ACT by the end of your junior year. We will have our planning college program, very similar to this one, for our junior students, and that's where we really started talking about preparing for college and applying to college and that type of thing. That will be in next October 2021. There will be a college fair Saturday in October 2021, again, assuming everything's back to normal with the pandemic. This year, the college fair was virtual, but next year's hopefully will be in person at the Prime Osborne Center. As I mentioned previously, we will have our PSAT at Bishop Kenny on Wednesday, October 13th of 2021. And then next year, as a junior, is the first time you will be eligible to come for our college visits. Again, most of those were available online this year. We did Zoom meetings with the college reps with our students, but next year hopefully we're back in person, and as a junior student you can sign up through the Navient's program and see what schools are coming to Bishop Kenny. You can come for those visits, whether that be the larger public universities, University of Florida, Florida State, UCF, and so forth, or some of the smaller private schools that come to Bishop Kenny throughout the year. We typically have approximately 50 to 75 schools that will visit between Labor Day and Thanksgiving in the fall. Florida by Futures is our next thing to discuss. You can see the next handout, we talk about the specific guidelines for the scholarship. There are two main scholarships that Bishop Kenny students are eligible for. Number one is the Florida Academic Scholars Award. As you can see, that's a 3.5 weighted core GPA. So like we talked about before, the core GPA is the key one they're looking at there. A 3.5 is mostly A's and some B's throughout high school. They use 16 core classes, so very similar to the Bishop Kenny graduation requirements. You see the 4 English, 4 math, 3 science, 3 social science, and then 2 world language credits. So it's a minimum of 16 courses. If you have 2 additional courses that will raise your GPA in those core areas, they will use those as well. So again, that's why it pays off to take a challenging schedule and do well in those classes. So a 3.5, which is mostly A's and some B's for the Academic Scholars Award. If you look to the right of that, you have a 3.0 weighted GPA for the Medallion Scholars Award, which is the lower scholarship. But again, that's a lot of money you can save over 4 years, so we want all of our students to shoot for that as the minimum. As you see for community service, it's currently 100 hours for the Academic Scholars Award. It's 75 hours for the Medallion Scholars Award. If you go to Bishop Kenny for all 4 years of high school, as you know, you're required to have 25 hours per year. So if you do graduate after 4 years and you've been here at Bishop Kenny for all 4 years, you should have 100 hours. Now, that may change due to the pandemic. They have not made any accommodations at this point, and they may not. So again, we'll always make you aware of that if they do make a change. But as of right now, as a sophomore, you should assume that you're required to have 100 hours in order to meet our graduation requirements as well as the Bright Future Scholarship. Test scores for the SAT. For the academic award, they require a 1330, and again, that's a super score. So if you have a higher reading score from when you were junior year and a higher math score from your senior year, you can combine those two together. So 1330 for SAT or a 29 for the ACT, and the ACT does round up. So if you have a 28.5 and your average of your 4 areas, they will round it up to a 29. Over on the right, the Medallion Award, it's 1210 SAT or 25 ACT. So again, 1210 SAT, 25 ACT for that. Below that, it discusses other ways to qualify, but 99.9% of the time our students qualify. It's through the general criteria, the 3.0, 3.5, and then the test scores that come along with that. And again, to emphasize, the student definitely needs a GPA and then one of those test score requirements, the SAT or the ACT. But they have to have the GPA that matches and then either the SAT or ACT score there. Down the bottom, you also see the website that corresponds with the Bright Future Scholarship, as well as the hotline if you have any questions there. The next set of handouts are 2 sets of matrices. One is from the private universities in Florida and one is from the public schools. So if you take a look at that, this is some great information we get every year when we participate in their workshops. You can see all of the 11 four-year public institutions in the state of Florida are listed there, everything from FAMU to West Florida, Central Florida, New College of Florida, and so forth. You can see their location, their application type, their middle 50% as far as who they accept with GPA. Reminder, that's core GPA when they're looking at that information. Average SAT and ACT scores, and a variety of information. So again, we would strongly encourage you to review that, take a look at the schools you are interested in, and making sure that you are meeting their criteria, if not exceeding that, to put yourself in the best situation possible. And you also have the same information for the private schools. So you've got Barry University, Flagler, Eckerd College. If you are looking for a smaller setting in the state of Florida, you could look at their information as well. A reminder that Bright Futures also applies to the private schools in Florida as well. Now, they do not match 75 or 100% of their tuition. Their tuition is much higher, but they give you the same dollar amount they would cost to go to the public schools. So if you qualify for the academic award and you receive 100% tuition there, you would give that same dollar amount to go to a private school in Florida, which would not be 100% of their tuition, but obviously it would be significant as far as meeting that overall cost. So again, that's definitely something we want you to be aware of as well. We encourage you to frequently visit the Bishop Kenny website. There's a lot of great information on there, whether it be the different class pages or what have you, information about athletics, academics, all those different things. We would encourage you to follow us on Twitter if you do use that service. We put out different information regarding our programs as well as testing information, AP exams, and so forth. So we would encourage you to do that. And again, we thank you for watching today. We know it's been a unique year and different year. We're glad we can provide this service virtually. If you do have any questions, you can always contact your counselor in our office. Like I said, the sophomore appointments will be beginning in early February. So our counselors will be setting up appointments specifically for the sophomores, but if you'd like to come in sooner than later, you're more than welcome to come in and sign for an appointment with your counselor and see them very shortly. Again, thank you for watching today. I hope everyone has a great day.